Jack Della Maddalena defeated Belal Muhammad via unanimous decision to become the new welterweight champ this past weekend at UFC 315. This is a big win for the welterweight division. We finally have an exciting champ. We don't have a inactive and semi-boring Leon Edwards as champion, and we don't have Belal Muhammad as champion anymore. What that does mean is that Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria is off the table for now. We have some fights to make. This is every fight that we need to see after UFC 315. Alrighty, so we start with the main event winner, the new welterweight champion of the world, Jack Della Maddalena. Honestly, in my opinion, became a huge star this weekend. Put on a great, one of the fights of the year so far, probably the best pay-per-view main event of the year to this point, right up there, maybe tied with Volk and Diego Lopez. But exciting new champion, had some really fun kind of trash talk to Ian Gary when he said Ian Gary's son is not really his. But I like that Jack Della Maddalena is not posturing with the UFC to try to get more money or fight this guy. I want this, I want that. He just says, I want to fight. And that's the type of champion that the UFC loves. And if he keeps winning, they're going to put him on a rocket ship. And he's honestly already on one, because his next fight's going to be a super fight with UFC lightweight champion Islam Makhachev. We've heard the rumors. We basically have this confirmed already. My best guess is September in Australia. There's rumored to be an event in Australia at the end of September. The report that was going around was that if JDM lost, it was going to be a fight night, and if he won, it was going to be a pay-per-view with him headlining. That's what I think we're going to get. I think we're going to get Islam Makhachev, JDM, as the main event of UFC like 319 or 320, something like that, with potentially a Volkanovski, Movsar Evloev co-main event. This is one of the more intriguing fights, especially now that we have the built-in storyline of JDM trying to get those back for Volk, like he said in the post-fight press conference. This is one of the biggest fights out there, is Islam Makhachev moving up to 170 pounds. We've been expecting this for some time, but now it actually looks like it's going to be against a very exciting fighter who has just proven to be able to beat Belal Muhammad, who has that same Dagestani style wrestling, not the same finishing ability as Islam Makhachev, but the same style of wrestling. It's going to be a harder fight for Jack Della Maddalena, but we'll see if Islam Makhachev's power, finishing ability, and wrestling translates to the next weight class up. Now, moving on from there, Ilia Topuria. He's obviously not fighting Islam Makhachev in his next fight due to Jack Della Maddalena winning. That means we get the other fight that we were essentially promised. Ilia Topuria, Charles Oliveira, co-main event or main event for UFC 317. I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's going to be for interim gold at 155 with Islam Makhachev moving up to 170. Interesting fight. Two of the bigger stars in the company, two of the bigger stars in the weight class. Really not much to say about it. It's going to be a firefight. It's going to be a car crash. There's really not much to say about it. It's going to be an amazing fight. That's all I have to say. I've talked about Topuria, Makhachev, and Oliveira ad nauseum. We know where we're at with that. Moving on from there, we have Valentina Shevchenko, and still the women's flyweight champion. She's going to be fighting a woman who just whooped on Alexa Grasso on the main card of the same pay-per-view. That's Natalia Silva. It's a new name. We're finally not getting a lot of repeats. And Natalia Silva put on a #1 contender type of performance. She beat a former champion, a champion that finished Valentina Shevchenko and fought her 3 total times. She absolutely cooked Alexa Grasso. This is the fight to make if they don't do Weili Zhang moving up to 125 to fight for the belt against Valentina. And given the UFC's kind of new policy where you got to vacate to move up unless you're Islam Makhachev, I think it makes more sense for Weili to stay at 115. She's pretty small anyway. We do Shevchenko versus Silva. Co-main event for the Abu Dhabi pay-per-view in October. Co-main event for December in Vegas, something like that. If they want to do it really early, September in Mexico, maybe, with Alexa Grasso on the main card trying to get a title fight, something like that. Valentina Shevchenko, title shot later this year, pay-per-view co-main event against Natalia Silva. Moving on from there, we have the main event loser, the now former welterweight champion of the UFC, Belal Muhammad. Look, it's going to take like 5 wins for Belal Muhammad to get back to a title shot. And at 37, 38 years old, that's tough. Now, he still was a UFC champion, although it was only for 1 fight. He still was a UFC champion. You can't take that away. But the road back to that belt is going to be long and hard. No Jones, all right? So we have loser of Usman versus Buckley, because the winner of that fight is going to be vying for a title shot. Welterweight is totally jam-packed with contenders that deserve title shots. And you have Islam Makhachev coming into the mix as well. We need to have more contender matchups because these guys need to sort it out, and they can't all sit out 14 months for a title shot. So Belal Muhammad against the loser of Joaquin Buckley versus Kamaru Usman. They're fighting on June 14th or 21st. I can't remember which one, in Atlanta as the headliner. Sick fight. I'm probably going to go with Joaquin Buckley, but either way, the loser of that fight against Belal Muhammad makes a lot of sense. Kamaru Usman might retire with a loss, which would complicate things, but the loser of this fight from a ranking standpoint, from a career trajectory standpoint, should fight Belal Muhammad. And then the winner of that is a step closer to a title shot. Usman versus Buckley, loser against Belal Muhammad. We move on from there to the fighters that matter in regards to 155 and 170, but we're not on the UFC 315 card, because if I'm making these matchups, it affects some other fighters in the division. First off, that's technically the #1 contender, Sean Brady, coming off of a win over former champion where he dominated and submitted Leon Edwards. Now, Sean Brady is one of the only top contenders that is saying he will take another fight to get to the belt. I like that. The UFC likes that for sure. Shavkat got hurt, and I think the division can't just wait around for Shavkat after almost losing to Ian Gary. And he missed the title shot. Like, he missed his opportunity. They were going to match him up with Belal. I think you do Shavkat and Sean Brady. Winner of that fights probably the winner of Islam versus JDM, just depending on how that goes as well. But you also have Ian Gary floating around, stuff like that. So I think you got to do Sean Brady, Shavkat Rakhmonov, #1 contenders fight. Put it on the same card in September. Put it on the same card. Shavkat just had surgery. That's 4 months from now. September, Australia, main card, same card as JDM and Islam. I'm already building the card for you right there. And then we also have some other contenders that need to get booked at 170 and 155. Carlos Prates just came off of a loss against Ian Gary. I think you rebook him against Jeff Neal. That's a sick fight. Pay-per-view main card. Prates probably not going to get a main event in his next fight because he didn't fight so well for the first 3 rounds of the Ian Gary fight. I think you do this on a pay-per-view main card. Later this year, Jeff Neal's been out for a while. Don't know how serious the injury was that pulled him off the Miami card. Prates just fought here. I think you maybe do it in August, something like that. August, September, October. Maybe it even ends up on the main card. Maybe it even ends up on the main card in Madison Square Garden in November, something like that. But that's a good fight. I think you rebook that. That makes a lot of sense for both guys. Moving on from there, Dan Hooker. I don't think that he's going to get this big step up like he did for the Gaethje fight that fell through. I think he's going to get matched up with Renato Moicano. There's a little bit of talk that's gone back and forth. If you remember that Dan Hooker, easy money with Renato Moicano. And Moicano's definitely not going to fight down in the rankings against like a Grant Dawson or somebody like that after literally taking a 24-hour title fight against the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Islam Makhachev. He got rewarded financially, but I think you also have to reward him with the opportunity to fight up in the rankings. It could be Dan Hooker. It could be Beneil Dariush. But still, the rumor is Beneil Dariush, Mauricio Huffy. I think you do Moicano, Dan Hooker. They both have funny personalities. They're both, good on the mic, and they put on bangers in the cage. This is a good pay-per-view main card fight. I mean, Dan Hooker had to have hand surgery. Moicano took a fight in January and got smoked on 24 hours notice, but he's got that money in his pocket. Put this on the main card of Australia. I already have 4 fights for you on the main card of that. JDM Islam main event. Volkanovski Movsar co-main event. Brady Rakhmonov feature fight. Hooker Moicano on the main card. And then you throw one more on there. Kai Kara France if he beats Pantoja at some point or something like that. Or no, that'd be 3 title fights. They don't really do those for pay-per-views anymore. That's 4 fights for the main card in like UFC 320, 321, something like that in Australia in September. Now we have a couple more to make. We have Justin Gaethje. He's not going to get a title fight. In my opinion, there's just way bigger fights to make that the fans will actually have reactions to. That will have good reactions to. If the fans hear Justin Gaethje versus Ilia Topuria, they'll be happy. but not as happy as Oliveira Topuria. So Justin Gaethje, him against Arman Tsarukyan, who just pulled out of the Islam Makhachev fight in January on 25 hours notice, 20 hours notice, something like that. Hurt his back, couldn't make weight. And I think you do number one contenders fight or title eliminator fight, Gaethje versus Tsarukyan. And then one more that I actually left off of here. I forgot to put it on here. It should be right here above my head. Leon Edwards, Ian Gary. Ian Gary was simping for a title shot. He's for sure going to get cucked out of it in very Ian Gary style. Ian Gary versus Leon Edwards. They already have the beef of Ian Gary getting kicked out of Leon's gym. Ian Gary, Leon Edwards makes perfect sense. Fight night main event in London, whatever, or maybe even, I don't know, wherever. Fight night main event. Leon Edwards, fight night main event against Ian Gary. Book it. So there we have our fights to make. JDM Islam, Topuria, Oliveira, Shevchenko, Silva, Bilal against Usman or Buckley, whoever loses, Brady versus Rachmanov, Prates versus Jeff Neal, Hooker versus Moicano, Gaethje Tsarukyan, and then we also have what should be above my head right here is Leon against Ian Gary. So let me know your thoughts down below. What fights do you want to see for the fighters that I made here? Did you like this video? Then like and subscribe down below. I also do multiple live streams per week along with behind the scenes content and members only live streams for our channel members. So become a channel member for access to bonus content. It's only $5 per month and it greatly helps the channel's growth. I also do a podcast with my best friend Bo, and I have a non-MMA channel as well called Wyatt's World. You can check both of those out linked below.